Chapter 504, The Patrol Army of the Primitive World. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. Zhang Yuochen closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Blackie's advice was rational to a certain extent. He hated Kai Yao. Naturally, he also felt prejudice toward her. Once there was animosity, it was easy to misjudge her, thus getting further and further from the truth. Since the secret has been discovered, of course, we have to check it out, Zhang Yuochen said. In addition to the primitive world of Wood Spirit, the Imperial Court's Ministry of War has also divided other primitive worlds into forbidden zones with many restrictions. These worlds are likely to have similar altars, but it's imperative that we return to the chaotic Millionverse Mountain without delay. Ships from the 10,000 Fields Tavern should be arriving at the primitive world of Wood Spirit in a few days, said Blackie. How do we go back? Zhang Yuochen's mouth rose slightly and he laughed. The patrol army of the primitive world of Wood Spirit will probably have ships in the primitive world too. Zhang Yuochen's eyes shrunk, and he looked up to the sky. On the horizon, he could see two rows of black dots inching closer. They were surrounded. It was two army patrol teams. They wore heavy armor, carried spears in their hands and stood atop the heads of purple tiger-like dragon beasts. They quickly drew nearer to Zhang Yuochen and Blackie. This is Fang Li, captain of the first team of the patrol army. Identify yourselves immediately. Although he was hundreds of kilometers away, Fang Li's voice pierced through the void space like dull thunder in Zhang Yuochen's ears. Zhang Yuochen felt pain in his eardrum and his whole world began to tumble in confusion. He had to run exercises to alleviate it. What a great master he is. I can't believe that the Ministry of War dispatched such a powerful person to patrol the primitive world of Wood Spirit. It appears that the primitive world of Wood Spirit has a large secret. Zhang Yuochen did not dare to be careless. He immediately ordered Blackie to stop. They levitated in midair carefully, on guard against the patrol army. The 10 sergeants were arranged in a fan shape about 333 meters away. The captain, Fang Li, stood in the center. He was a muscular man with long arms, and a thick silver spear in his hand, like a great god of war. Fang Li had only glanced at him, but Zhang Yuochen felt a chill creep through his back. He could clearly perceive that Fang Li's cultivation had reached the 4th change in the fish-dragon realm. His strength was more than 10 times that of the tree progenitor at the 5th change in the fish-dragon realm. They were not at the same level of power at all. He had been able to kill the tree progenitor with just one move. This was a real battle-seasoned master. Timid people would kneel down to beg for mercy before him just because of his momentum. On the other side, the sergeants of the 2nd Patrol Army team had drawn closer and were also arranged in a fan shape. The captain of the 2nd team was very thin and sallow. However, he was not weak. His cultivation had also reached the 4th change in the fish-dragon realm. He was at the same level as Fang Li. What should we do? Wipe them out? There was a harsh countenance in Blackie's eyes. Don't worry, Zhang Yuochen replied. Just wait a minute. A sergeant from the first team rode his purple tiger-like dragon beast to Zhang Yuochen. Coldly, he said, do you know that our captain was speaking to you? If you do not tell us your name, you will be punished as a trespasser. The sergeant displayed a flippant grab technique. He crossed his arms, and a blaze of flames came from his 2 hands. He tried to grab Zhang Yuochen by the shoulder. Zhang Yuochen stepped back, escaping the sergeant's hands. He struck the sergeant in the chest with a thump. The sergeant flew backwards and fell onto the back of the purple tiger-like dragon beast. Dare to fight back? You're damn rebellious. The sergeant's eyes grew cold. He took out a spear from the iron chain on his savage beast's back. He grasped the spear, ready to rush forward again. Long Yun, you are not his opponent. Move back quickly. Fang Li, the captain of the patrol army, called out. The sergeant, Long Yun, felt great awe for Fang Li and dared not to complain. He withdrew immediately. Fang Li glared at Zhang Yuochen with his beady eagle eyes. Long Yun's martial cultivation is at the completion of the heaven realm. Although he is not a warrior of the heaven board, he is a superior who has experienced dozens of battles in the battlefield of primitive world. You fought him off with only one move. You are a master of the heaven board, correct? Zhang Yuochen said. What if you were on the heaven board? If you hadn't reached the fish dragon realm, you would just be a mortal man. It seems that you have a clear estimation of yourself. Since that's the case, there is no need for me to join the battle. Come with us, Fang Li said. Fang Li did not think that Zhang Yuochen had any connection to the accident in the Blackwood field. He assumed that Zhang Yuochen was a trespasser and was ready to take him back and detain him. Any other time, Zhang Yuochen would not mind going back with them. After all, the Marshall Market Bank would certainly negotiate with the Ministry of War because of his status and he would be released. But he was anxious to return to Chaotic Millionverse Mountain. If he was treated as a trespasser, he would have to delay for a long time before he could go back. Zhang Yuochen didn't answer for a long time and Fang Li was impatient. His eyes revealed a chill. They caught and killed smugglers. He lifted his palms slowly. He directed his strength with his palms, and the clouds above the sky shook, then condensed into the shape of a handprint. The cloud handprint was several meters long. It floated above Zhang Yuochen's head, like the Five-Finger Mountain. It was an inferior class ghost-level martial technique, Surprise Cloud Palm. Obviously, Fang Li had practiced the Surprise Cloud Palm to the perfection of martial arts. His cultivation was extremely profound and far beyond mortal. The Surprise Cloud Palm he displayed could break out admirably wonderful power. Just take a chance. Zhang Yuochen took a deep breath and took out the token of the Commandery Prince of Yunwu Commandery. Captain Fang, what are you doing? I just came to the primitive world of Wood Spirit to gain experience. How did I offend you? After seeing the token in Zhang Yuochen's hand, Fang Li's eyes returned to normal. He took his palms back. The huge handprint above the sky dispersed. All the pressure vanished. Yunwu Commandery Prince. Fang Li looked at the token carefully and frowned slightly. The titles of nobility in the First Central Empire were divided into Kings of Heaven, Kings of Domains, and Kings of Counties. Thrento. Each title was divided into 3 grades. The token in Zhang Yuochen's hand represented the nobility of the inferior Commandery Prince. Among the titles of nobility, it was the lowest grade. That is, the lowest nobility. However, even the lowest nobility still belonged to nobility. And they had the qualifications to come to the primitive world of Wood Spirit for experience. It was as difficult as climbing up to the sky for a warrior to obtain a title of nobility, even if it was the lowest rank. He had to accumulate a considerable number of military merits in the battlefield of the primitive world to be awarded the title of nobility. The possession of a title of nobility was equivalent to the government officials of the First Central Empire. People who had a title of nobility enjoyed preferential treatment and had access to many places that ordinary warriors couldn't go. Zhang Yuochen had not put his experience in the primitive world of Wood Spirit in the Ministry of the War records. Actually, he was wagering that Yuan Mook Singling had already pulled some strings in the Moon Worship demonic sect to help him file in the Ministry of War. Yuan Mook Singling had visited the primitive world of Wood Spirit and said that Zhang Yuochen had not filed in the Ministry of War. She was going to pull some strings at the Moon Worship demonic sect and oversee the filing. She had made arrangements with him to return to Chaotic Millionverse Mountain within 10 days. Thus she would definitely help him file. She might even have made some arrangements in advance. Of course, all this was just Zhang Yuochen's speculation. He wasn't completely certain this had happened. He could only hope for now. After all, the captains of the 2 teams were monks in the 4th change of the Fish Dragon realm. They had the ability to fight warriors in other realms. It was better not to fight unless it was necessary. Fang Li's eyes kept changing. Yi Quan, is Zhang Yuochen, the Yunwu Commandery Prince on the record? Yi Quan took out a jade-carved letter, looked it over and nodded his head. Yes. Fang Li looked at Zhang Yuochen again. Since you are the Commandery Prince of the Yunwu Commandery, I will not stop you, but there are a few things that I would like to ask. Did you just come from Blackwood Field? Zhang Yuochen stored the token and smiled. I just discovered that there was great movement in the Blackwood Field. I thought there were some treasures to be found, so I went looking for opportunity. However, I didn't dare go any further. It is said to be quite dangerous inside. Fang Li looked into Zhang Yuochen's eyes, trying to gauge whether he was lying. A large number of dreammen died in Blackwood Field. It must have been the work of a great master. Did you see anyone suspicious? Zhang Yuochen shook his head. Do you have any other questions? If not, I'm going to go. No, Fang Li answered. After Zhang Yuochen and Blackie left, the captain of the second team, Yi Quan, rode a purple tiger-like dragon beast up to Fang Li's side. He stared at the dark spot in the distance. "Fang Li, do you believe what he said?" Fang Li looked rigorous. He shook his head. "Although he hid very well, I still think he is suspicious. His cultivation has just reached the completion of Heaven Realm, but I couldn't even see through him. Such a person claims that he dared not to break into the Blackwood field. Would you believe it?" Yi Quan stroked his spear silently and laughed. "Of course I don't believe it." As he spat out the eye, the spear in his hand stabbed out quickly. By the time he said believe, his spear had pierced through Fang Li's backbone. Fang Li's body split in two. Such a great superior died so imperceptibly. He could never have expected that he would be killed by his teammate. Yi Quan looked unperturbed. He shook his arm quickly and Fang Li's dead body flew out. With the bloody spear in his hand, he laughed. "Of course I don't believe it because he is totally a trespasser. However, since the Saintness wants me to help him and try to conceal his identity, I have no other choice but to kill you."